The Acolyte. Well, what is there to say about this week's installment? I'm actually at a loss of how to express what happened in this episode. The last episode, I did say that I felt it was a small uptick in quality before an inevitable crash, and I couldn't have been more right. This episode is a perfect specimen of what happens when you smash together everything that has made Disney Star Wars utterly dreadful and present it as if it's new and exciting. With the finale of the previous episode, I did genuinely think that we were going to have an episode that was going to deal with the fallout of that and attempt to develop us towards the final episodes for whatever conclusion that they're trying to bring us to. However, none of that happens, and all of that content that I was expecting has obviously been pushed to the next episode. Because of this, I can't help but regret my chosen title of the episode 4 review, which was Nothing Really Happens. That was a mistake, because in episode 6, there's just 36 minutes of credits, title sequence, next to zero plot development, zero character development, zero development of any type, which finally begins to answer how they've managed to get 8 episodes of this show. It's because there's so much needless filler. What content we do get in this episode is some largely nonsensical and or badly written dialogue, the same flip-flopping motivations and acts done out of what we think is a person's character because there's so little development that no one really knows any of the characters. And with how stupid or indecisive they are, it's bloody hard to know what they're actually going for anyways. We also get changes in allegiance that make little to no sense in any way, shape or form with how quickly they come about. And because of all of this nonsense and all of this unknowns with regards to the characters within the show, there's a complete lack of connection, at least for me, with any of the characters. And because of that, I can't empathise with any of them or their situations, because they're either all absolutely retarded, or I just don't know enough about them to care. Simply put, I either don't have the information or the capability to connect with any of the characters. And this was a big thing in the previous episode, because when characters got killed, I didn't care. If anything, I was rooting for the Sith, which is the complete opposite of what you should be doing. And this is all down to the fact that everything is so superficial and underdeveloped. And the most infuriating point I can think of is this episode is maybe 10 minutes of content, and I'm probably being incredibly kind there, stretched out needlessly to a 36-minute episode. And why is this infuriating? Because at this point, and granted I am including the full runtime of the episode, we've had almost 2 films in runtime of content, and apart from a Jedi glowstick party, there's absolutely nothing to show for it. To say that this episode is a return to form of what we would have expected before episode 5 is an understatement, because I actually can't help but think that this episode is actually worse. But with that, let's take a look. So after the obligatory previously on, once again reminding me of just how bad everything I've seen so far has been, we're greeted by Osha, who is now waking up in the depths of the Sith's lair. Well done, Disney. You've managed less than 10 seconds before you've already destroyed the continuity between the end of episode 5 and episode 6. You definitely deserve the award for the most retarded writing of the year. At the end of the previous episode, the Sith force healed her. Why is she wounded? Why does she need bandages? It doesn't make sense. And we can go further than that. Why did a 5-foot fall cause such a wound in her side. With how the terrain is very rocky, it's infinitely more likely, being force pushed off of a ledge, that she would hit her head, which would explain why she was unconscious for as long as she was if she had a wound to her head. But no, she has a slash to her side, and she's been unconscious for Christ knows how long. It's just dumb writing. They look at a situation, and the sensible option is the one they avoid. And it doesn't make sense why she'd be wounded from falling off a 5-foot ledge by a gash to the side, when this is the same person who has already been launched through the forest and apparently came out completely unscathed, or, of course, lest we forget, survived a head-on collision with a planet from outer space with no injuries. It just makes no sense. And there's a lot just to be said with the quality of writing in general these days. It seems incredibly rare that anyone can write something that's even remotely plausible. So she finds May's things, and then takes the whole switcheroo thing even further. Although, having thought about it now, this does raise the question of where May's other clothes from the previous episode actually ended up, because Osha isn't wearing them and wasn't wearing them at the end of the episode. So then Osha walks out of the cave at the super secret Sith base, where there's obvious signs that it's habited, such as a health and safety guardrail going along the path, hardly secretive, and the Sith ship is just clearly parked out in the open on the island. You know, for someone who's hiding from the Jedi at this point, it's not exactly hiding. This isn't Luke's planet, is it? I mean, I think they definitely think that they were being clever, but come on. It's from The Last Jedi, a film that pretty much everyone does not want to remember. And it was, as I remember it, pretty much universally panned. Do you really want to bury that? But of course, it probably isn't Luke's planet, it just looks suspiciously the same. And then the show goes ahead and decides to tell us where we are, which is exactly where we already didn't know we were. This whole thing is a statement that tells us absolutely nothing and is completely pointless. What creative decision was taken to put unknown planet there? I mean, do they genuinely think that their audience are fucking stupid? I mean, I am already stretching the definition of creative massively, but of course this does add an extra 6 seconds to the length of this episode and tells us nothing, so clearly from their perspective it's probably a good decision. One thing that you do have to wonder though is just how long was she actually unconscious for from a cut to the side? Because if this is a different planet than the one that they were on, he had time to pick her up, walk back to his ship, fly to a different planet, bring her to his lair, and then cook her meal and bandage up her wound that didn't need bandaging. I know the show breaks any understanding of the actual length of time that it takes to travel anywhere, because they seem to just be able to get to their location in the space of minutes. But surely this is now just taking the piss.
The anticipated.
So Master Sol's trying to inform the Jedi of basically what's gone on and the fact that everyone's dead. But the line's basically a bit squiffy. But while he's doing this, May sneaks up behind him, knife out, clearly to kill him. But then Master Sol says he's going to reset the comms and then invites her to fly the ship, which she does instead of killing him. For what reason? We don't know. I mean, she's literally the worst character in this show. And there are so many contenders. We never know what she's going to do. Her motives are contrary one moment to her motives the moment before. Since episode 4, her arc has actually gone like this. I'm going to turn myself in despite killing 2 Jedis because they will forgive me because I know stuff. When presented with the Jedi she can turn herself into, I am going to run away. When confronted by a Jedi Padawan who she could also turn herself into, I am going to fight the Jedi because the Jedi is trying to arrest me. But I was trying to hand myself into them, so I would have been arrested anyways. Then she goes to, I am going to pretend to be my sister so I can sneak away with Master Sol. Then she moves to, I am going to kill Master Sol. None of this makes sense. There's no rationale at all applied to any of these changes in character. And there's no events that would explain why these are changing. It's like we're dealing with someone who's either completely incomprehensible, mentally ill, or probably both. And this is just an example of how bad their character writing is, because this can actually be applied to almost everyone. And what's then is their absolutely crap character building then bleeds into their shoddy plot writing and further damages what is already incredibly flawed. Because, well, to give you an example, if May's whole motive was to come here to kill Master Sol, then she could have killed Master Sol when he was stunned on the floor after she'd knocked out Osha. But she doesn't. But now it seems it is her goal. But then it's not. It's just shite. And it starts to make you think, why even bother to show this? I can only assume that it's the writer's piss-poor attempt at producing suspense, because if it isn't that, I haven't got a clue. So, Sol turns off the transponder, turns it back on again, but we actually have to wait the whole 30 seconds, like, all manufacturers' instructions, and just watch him be emotional. Now, the one thing I will say is he's actually a good actor. But as per the late, great Ray Stevenson, good actors can only elevate trash so much. So then Osha sneaks up on the Sith and spends an uncomfortable amount of time watching him take a bath. She then nicks his lightsaber, and I can't help but feel that there might be some sort of underlying message here. And then I shit you not, flirts with her by saying, if you're not going to join me, can I put my clothes back on? And he stands up, and she just looks right at his cock. This is Disney Star Wars, guys. But let's just take a little look.
If you're not gonna join me, I'd like to put my clothes back on.
So Sol and May have a semblance of a heart-to-heart, where Sol says it's time that I came clean and told the High Council everything, only for the first of many things to go wrong to stop any meaningful development of the overarching storyline. Because obviously they need something for the next 2 episodes. So, in response to this, he sends May off to fix the problem, clearly thinking that she's Osha. So not only could he not read the mind of the bloody Sith in episode 2, but he can't read that May is pretending to be Osha. And we have to remember that Osha was his bloody Padawan. He spent years around her. He would know her emotions inside and out, and May's would be completely different. So he should know, but for the purposes of the plot, he doesn't. We return to the Jedi, where any sort of masculinity, particularly white masculinity, is apparently a crime.
Apologies, Senator. I must go. But thank you for your update.
I'm not being funny, but she has the acting range of a brick.
We received a distress call from Master Sol.
What did he say?
There were casualties.
Who?
The connection was faulty, but it sounded like the entire team.
What the fuck? The connection was faulty, but basically we got the entire message. Honestly, this shit is hurting my brain. Why waste so much time setting this all up, the issues that the message couldn't come through, if you were going to write it so the message basically got through anyways? Between the whole Sol in the cockpit shit, resetting the comms and just us standing there and watching them, then returning to the cockpit, having reset it, and this scene, they've actually wasted almost a quarter of the entire episode with absolutely no payoff and no reason. Like, it's just so wasteful. It's not building suspense. There's no thrills here. It's just dull, monotonous shit.
Speak as if you were a Jedi.
I was, a long time ago.
What? This makes no sense. You were a Jedi a long time ago. There's barely any difference in age. And Osha was in the Jedi Order since she was a young girl. So I was supposed to believe that his time in the Jedi predated hers and that he left before she joined. Because unless it did, they're raising the possibility that she should be aware of him. Or more so, Master Sol should be aware of him, or know him. And it just raises more questions. He's not old enough of a character for him to realistically not have some crossover with someone within the Jedi who would be aware of him.
If you keep me here, Soul comes to you. He's found me before, and his strength in the Force is very powerful.
His strength in the Force isn't that powerful. And why threaten him with Master Sol? He literally just dicked on Master Sol and 7 other Jedis, killing all 7. So Master Sol can come for him. My money's on the Sith.
Hey, relax, hey, whoa, relax, okay?
This is actually excruciating. So the writers have put this crap in. Why? In order for it to seem funny or garner some cheap laughs? It's just sad. When he goes up to her and starts trying to tackle him, why doesn't she just kill him? It's just ridiculous. And it just seems like they're doing it to have something happen that will waste more time. Now, I didn't mention this previously because I didn't feel like it was worth mentioning, but there was a 30-second scene earlier in the episode where we watched Basil fumble around to put this little pip droid into a charging point. And that was painful, because it was just a complete waste of time, like so much of this episode. And now, that whole part was just to set up May factory resetting Pip. Because obviously they have factory resets in Star Wars now. You honestly couldn't write this. No, I mean, actually, you really couldn't, unless, of course, you were retarded. So this whole section, basically the Sith starts to teach Osha the ways of the dark side, by saying that instead of the Jedi's teaching, there's a way to access the Force quick and easy through the harnessing of emotions like anger and hate. So by this point, I really think Osha's going to go dark side, and May's probably going to be redeemed to the light side because, well, that's the obvious stupid twin thing to do, so it'll probably be how it goes.
You murdered my friends.
I killed Jedi. I killed those who threatened my existence.
This is the whole thing that the writers are going for. That it's about who has the power and the ability to wield it. So they're trying to paint the Jedi as being oppressive, without any context. Because the Sith are evil. They've never been painted as misunderstood. They actively seek to dominate everyone else to their will. Throughout all of the films, even the new trilogy, which was utter crap, they still got that fundamental message correct. But it seems like there's this attempt to paint the Jedi as being reprehensible. And it's just not going to wash. But in response to all of this, Osha doesn't really seem to object that strongly at all. And I can't help but feel the reason for that is because they need her to go dark side, and there's only 3 episodes. Well, by this point, 2.5, because we are halfway through this episode and nothing's bloody happened. But they only have that amount of time for her to go dark side. So they're having to do it very quick, with 0 development, 0 rationale. It's not even like he's wearing her down, he's just had a conversation.
I'm not my sister. I'm not that easily corrupted.
Well, you heard it there, she's not that easily corrupted.
You stayed here to do something. Do it. Turn it on.
And this is just where the lackluster writing once again rears its ugly head. So, she states that I'm not that easily corrupted, but the Sith has to remind her that she's supposed to kill him. But then, literally moments later, she fires up the lightsaber in anger and threatens him. So much for not being easily corrupted. So much for you not forgetting your Jedi teachings and turning on a sixpence.
How could I not have sensed that villain's true intentions?
When you really want something, it can cloud your mind. You see what you want to see.
So, credit where credit is due. The writers actually try to address one of the enormous plot holes that they left up until this point. How did Master Sol not sense the Sith? But the answer they give is just so god-awful. Basically, he fooled himself by seeing only what he wanted to see. That's why he didn't see the Sith. And I'm guessing that that is supposed to be the explanation here of why he doesn't see that this is May. Despite the fact that at points, you can see parts of a fucking tattoo through her hair. Now, the issue with this is it means that the reason wasn't that the dark side was in its ascendancy, like with the Emperor, for instance, and how he was manipulating the Force to shroud himself. And even then, the Jedi did have strong suspicions about Palpatine. It's that Master Sol, for want of a better word, is inept as a Jedi, or perhaps he's just conflicted by emotion. Which means, actually, could a twist be that he's susceptible to becoming a Sith, or turning to the dark side? So she then starts to fish for information about her childhood, but then the lights turn back on before she gets any of the information, which is awfully convenient, because it once again just leaves us in this limbo of being in the exact same situation with regards to the story as we were now, 20 minutes ago?
Hello, is anybody there? Can you hear me?
Identify yourself.
My name is...
There's the tattoo. But how did it take him this long to realise that it was May? Did Basil tell him? Because I was under the belief that Master Sol couldn't speak Basil's language. Then there's other questions. Why did he stun her before she could talk to the Jedi who are on their way? It's starting to make Master Sol seem like he is actually guilty of something, and that he's trying to hide something, which, of course he is, and I'm sure we'll find out before the end of the season. So again, convenience strikes once more. He turns off the transponder and jumps exactly before the rescue team of Jedi jump in. So the rescue squad starts to happen upon the bodies, but the rescue team numbers 4 by the looks of things. And I find that incredibly odd that they would send so few to a place where they believe, 7 Jedi were killed? And as far as we're aware, 6 of them were Jedi Knights. So whoever killed them would be pretty damn strong, and yet you came with 4 guys.
What happened here?
What do you see?
So another male who is an absolute moron. It's almost like George has been resurrected into this.
His sole aim was to leave no survivors.
You know, I was waiting to see the lightsaber whip for just how stupid it would be, and I was not disappointed. More nonsensical, however, is the fact that the moth creature was attracted to her despite her not having a light, and it being light outside. Go figure.
They were all killed by a lightsaber.
What does that tell you?
A powerful Jedi has fallen. You don't think Master Sol was responsible?
So this is actually starting to disturb my calm. So they're painting Master Sol as being the bad guy now, but the only option that they seem to be able to comprehend is that a Jedi has fallen, rather than there were these people who we thought were extinct, called Sith, who used lightsabers. I just don't understand. I know Disney doesn't respect any of the wider canon, but the Sith had an entire empire. It's something that they should be aware of, but none of them seem to be aware of it. But because of that, part of me thinks that they're not using the word Sith, apart from him saying, I guess you can call me Sith, because they know that it will destroy the prequels. But they've already irreparably damaged the prequels with this. So May wakes up tied to a bed, and once again this conversation goes down the route of Sol hinting that he's going to tell us what happened when May was a child. And then that is the last thing that we hear in this episode. So we started this at about the 3rd minute of the episode, where Saul turns around and says, I need to come clean to the Jedi Council about what happened long ago. And then we end up in a situation where we're now at minute 29 or 30, where we still are no further forward. It's just contrived absolute drivel. So Osha inspects the Sith's helmet. Well, she did inspect his other helmet earlier in the episode, if you catch my drift. I mean, come on. Cortosis is supposed to be exceptionally rare, but there's just an enormous seam just sat there in the wall. The biggest question that this raises is why hasn't Smiler mined it and made even more armour to make him even more invincible against Jedi and lightsabers? The fact that it's just there and has been left and not mined makes absolutely no sense at all. Of course, unless Osha does go dark side and it's there so he can mine it to make her a helmet. So I'm just going to stop that there because she's popped the helmet on and we're literally greeted to about 30 seconds of breathing and shots from the inside and outside of the helmet, and then the episode ends. So that's that. Another 30 minutes of my life that I will never get back, and if any of you have watched the episode, you won't get it back either. How this show cost what it did and had the balls to claim that there's 8 episodes of content here, I genuinely don't understand. Almost all of this episode is a big fat nothing burger with no meaningful actions, and the only content being teasers with no payoff, flip-flopping, and just more implausible circumstances. And even then, when they tried to do the usual cliché tropes of the comms not working and the message being garbled, they pulled out of it and wasted a quarter of the episode to get to the point where they got the message anyways. Why not just have them get the message anyways and spend the rest of that time doing something actually constructive? We've left this episode, it feels, in almost the exact same position as we left the previous one. The only difference is that Osha... The only 2 differences is that Osha now looks like she's going dark side, and the Jedi think Saul's evil. Apart from that, nothing has been answered, more questions have been raised, and there's no logical reason for any of the changes, just like the rest of the series. Like, how did Osha get corrupted to the dark side in the space of hours? It took the Emperor years of whispering in Anakin's ears to get him to turn, and Osha's just like, yeah, sure, why not? And the whole of the May part of the episode could have been condensed to 2 minutes or less, and yet took, I think when I worked it out, about 14 minutes. I just can't help but feel that in this episode, apart from the writing being absolute drivel, the writers suffer from the same flaws as they have in so many other shows. Halo, for instance, where they spend so much time padding out crap and things that don't matter, or answering questions in such lackluster ways that they spend no time developing the things that matter, or less time answering questions that need better answers. And that, for me, makes this episode the perfect manifestation of the phrase, all filler, no killer. But that's my thoughts. Let me know what you thought below. And as always, if you liked the video, please like it and subscribe for future content. But with that, that's it from me, so that's it for you.